The Sovereign Order of Malta would like to underline the important role of religious leaders and religious congregations in the protection and assistance to victims of human trafficking, often in cooperation with former victims and survivors. Let us highlight, among others, the following networks of religious organizations active on behalf of victims of human trafficking. First, the Santa Marta Group, a global partnership with representatives of the Catholic Church, police agencies, and international organizations from 30 countries. Second, the International Catholic Migration Commission, ICMC, who protects and serves uprooted people, including refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced persons, victims of human trafficking, and migrants, regardless of faith, race, ethnicity, or nationality. Third, the Talita Kum network, the international network of consecrated life against human trafficking with members from 92 countries and with Sister Gabriella in charge. The CourtNet, managed by Caritas, a global network of Christian organizations working to combat human trafficking and assisting survivors of modern slavery with 45 Christian, Catholic, Anglican, and Orthodox organizations in 39 countries. The U.S. Catholic Sisters Against Human Trafficking, a collaborative, faith-based national network that offers education, supports access to survival services, and engages in advocacy to eradicate modern-day slavery. Religious in Europe Networking Against Trafficking and Exploitation, Renate, a network of 139 organizations working in 31 countries. The Jesuit Refugee Services, working in 52 countries. The Association Comunità Papa Giovanni XXIII in Italy, with over 60 family homes outside of Italy. Africa Network Against Human Trafficking, working from Nigeria. The Australian Catholic Religious Against Trafficking in Human, ACRAT. And then also the quite interesting Australian Anti-Slavery Network, ACAN, facilitated by the Task Force, Anti-Slavery Task Force of the Archdiocese of Sydney, chaired by Attorney at Law John McCarthy, a member of the Order of Malta. And then, eventually, Solvodi, Solidarity with Women in Distress, active in Germany, Austria, Romania, Hungary, and Africa. Regarding global responsibility, as Pope Francis said, and beginning of quote, together with the social responsibility of businesses, there is also the social responsibility of consumers. Every person ought to have the awareness that purchasing is always a moral and not simply an economic act. End of quotation. Today's measures to prosecute traffickers and to protect and shelter victims are notoriously insufficient and inefficient. Legal instruments and mechanisms exist at the domestic, regional, and global level, but they are not up to the challenge of the increasing scourge of modern trafficking. These legal mechanisms often only prosecute a handful of criminals and offer insufficient numbers of shelters and services to victims. Indeed, the number of criminal convictions related to human trafficking is extremely low. 1 in more than 2,000 cases of slavery results in a conviction. On the root causes, the Order of Malta shares the view that the demand for trafficking should be criminalized, taking into account the different forms of exploitation, slave labor, or sexual exploitation. The fight against human trafficking, particularly related to demand, must be carried out through a multidisciplinary, multidimensional, and coordinated approach from different actors. Concerning online exploitation, the criminalization of consumers who purchase images or even the piloting of abuse sessions on minors and women must be a priority. Existing international, regional, and national political and legal instruments must be fully implemented, and we must consider new instruments adapted to the abuse of new technologies. We need a completely new way of thinking about modern slavery. We have to reconceptualize human rights in the workplace. We have to build a new economic model that advantages businesses respecting human rights. Decent work is at the opposite end of the same spectrum as modern slavery. Indeed, what we need is to promote a culture of respect for human rights in the workplace. Demand comes from unrestricted dominion over human beings and over the creation, without any respect, neither for human life nor dignity. And for this, see the 2020 Fratelli Tutti encyclical letter, nor for integral ecology, the Chapter 4 of the 2015 Laudato Si encyclical letter. Today's economic system too often allows the primacy of objects over humans and the priority of capital over labor, technology as an end and not as a means, and technology being abused to create demand. It's not enough to provide human trafficking survivors with just legal protection. We must also provide them with physical, psychological, and religious protection. It is important to give them a safe space to return to a normal life accompanied by all the medical and social services which they may need. States must also abolish existing laws prosecuting the victims of trafficking and go after the traffickers instead. Governments must provide victims with a safe space, access to help from authorities, and not be in danger of deportation, receiving fines, or being wrongfully imprisoned. All countries should advocate the Nordic model, which was introduced in Sweden in 1999 and was the world's first law to recognize prostitution as violence against women and as a violation of human rights. It criminalizes the purchase of commercial sex and offers an exit strategy to former prostitutes. Demand is at the core of all types of human trafficking. Article 9, paragraph 5 of the UN Trafficking in Persons Protocol, the Palermo Protocol, calls on states to develop legal and policy measures that will work to end the demand that leads to human trafficking in all its forms. And then allow me to conclude with these two questions. Firstly, how could religious values of solidarity and respect for human rights and dignity be better used to stop contemporary forms of slavery? How could faith-based organizations receive more support to protect and rehabilitate victims? And secondly, how could we collectively promote hard and soft legal instruments, monitoring and criminalizing the demand for all forms of human trafficking, slave labor, sexual exploitation, forced organ transportations, sold and stolen babies, and forced surrogacy motherhood, as demand is the whole cause of contemporary slavery. Thank you for listening to us, and please contribute to this struggle against modern slavery.